It started innocently enough. Alex had always been the type to spoil themselves with online shopping. Quick, convenient, and a little rush of excitement with each order. They'd been waiting all week for the latest delivery, a brand new laptop that was supposed to make work and play much easier. It was the kind of purchase that felt like a small reward for all the long hours spent working hard. But when the tracking number updated and the familiar notification from Amazon popped up saying the package had been delivered, Alex felt an unsettling chill down their spine. Delivered? Alex rushed to the front door, excitement bubbling in their chest. But when they opened it, expecting to see the neat brown box with that unmistakable logo, nothing was there. Not even a signature left by the delivery driver. The disappointment hit first. Maybe the package had just been left on the side or somewhere out of view. But after scouring the porch, the bushes, and the yard, Alex's frustration began to turn into something darker. A creeping suspicion that began to gnaw at them. The package wasn't just misplaced. It was gone. Completely vanished. Alex quickly checked the security camera footage, hoping it was a glitch, an error in the system. But no. The footage showed the delivery truck rolling up, leaving the package on the doorstep. And then, nothing. No one came. No one took it. At least not in the footage. The sinking feeling in their stomach wasn't new. Over the past few months, Alex had experienced several missing packages. A set of headphones that vanished without a trace. A rare comic book that had been marked as delivered but never arrived. Each time, the loss was annoying but manageable. Until now. This wasn't just any package. This was the package, the one that had taken weeks to arrive. The thought of losing it was unbearable. Alex contacted Amazon's customer service, and they promised to investigate. But the issue wasn't just about the package anymore. It was something far deeper. Someone was taking the deliveries. Alex had begun to suspect that this wasn't a random act of theft. It was personal. Who would steal packages from a quiet suburban neighborhood like theirs? The more Alex thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. Over the past few weeks, something odd had been happening in the neighborhood. Deliveries had been showing up at odd hours, sometimes late at night, sometimes just before dawn. The strange thing was, there was a person who always seemed to be out and about, lurking near the delivery times. It was Karen, the neighbor 2 houses down, who, in hindsight, always seemed to be a little too friendly. She'd wave, smile, and chat just a little too long whenever Alex happened to catch her outside. Alex's heart pounded in their chest as they played back the interactions. Was it possible? Could it really be Karen? A sickening thought crossed Alex's mind. Had Karen been taking the deliveries? But the evidence wasn't there. Not yet. Alex had no proof. No camera footage. No eyewitnesses. Only gut instinct. It could be anyone, really, but Karen was the one who stood out. Frustration boiled inside Alex. The helplessness of it all, coupled with the nagging feeling that someone they trusted had betrayed them, left Alex with an unsettling mix of anger and confusion. There was only one way to find out for sure. And that plan, well, it would change everything. The days that followed felt suffocating. Alex couldn't stop thinking about the missing laptop. The more they replayed the scenario in their head, the more certain they became. Karen was involved. But how could they prove it? It wasn't like Karen had left a trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to the crime scene. No, it was far more insidious than that. She was clever, too clever. Each morning, Alex would leave the house early, before the sun had fully risen, and return late in the evening. They could feel the weight of the missing packages, the nagging sense that something was off. Yet every time they opened their front door, they'd find the same eerie emptiness staring back at them. The mailbox was bare. No new Amazon box waiting to greet them. But then, as the days dragged on, something strange started happening. Alex began to notice Karen's routine more. There she was, every morning like clockwork, strolling up and down the block, always just when deliveries seemed to happen. Karen would step out, sometimes looking like she was on a leisurely walk, other times with a basket of flowers in hand, but always, when the Amazon trucks rolled by. One day, it hit Alex like a freight train. Karen was outside, casually chatting with the mailman while a truck pulled up and dropped off a fresh set of packages. 2 of them, sitting right on Alex's doorstep. But Karen was still there, idling by the curb, as if she were waiting for just the right moment. Alex's heart raced. Karen didn't even live here. Why was she always around when the packages arrived? The next day, when Alex was in a rush to head out for work, they noticed something odd in Karen's front yard. A package, an Amazon box, was sitting in plain view, right on the edge of her porch. But it didn't look like a package Karen had ordered. No, this one had Alex's name on it. Was this it? Was this the proof they had been waiting for? Alex's pulse quickened. The package was just sitting there, unclaimed. For a moment, Alex almost walked over to it, grabbed it, and confronted Karen. But the hesitation gripped them, like cold fingers at the back of their neck. Alex knew that if they were wrong, the fallout would be worse than just losing another package. The whole neighborhood would be on edge. So, they waited. They watched. And the longer they did, the more things seemed to fall into place. It was late that evening when Alex's suspicions reached their peak. Through the window, they watched as Karen stepped out of her house, this time carrying a small bag of groceries. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The delivery truck had just dropped off another package, and Karen, again, was lurking near the sidewalk. Alex watched as Karen casually crossed the street, seemingly oblivious to the delivery. Then she did the unthinkable. Without hesitation, Karen picked up the package from Alex's porch, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. She tucked it under her arm and walked back to her house, smiling all the way. The moment felt like a punch in the gut. There it was. The evidence. Karen had stolen the package. A mix of disbelief and fury bubbled up inside Alex. But as they stood frozen, staring at the scene unfolding before them, a chilling thought surfaced. What if this wasn't the first time? What if there had been dozens of stolen deliveries they never even knew about? Alex's grip on the windowsill tightened. Karen had to be stopped. The feeling of helplessness morphed into something far darker. The line had been crossed, and Alex knew they had to do something about it. Something that would not only end the thefts, but send a message loud and clear. They needed to confront Karen, but not the way anyone would expect. Alex's mind raced as a wicked idea began to form. The next few days passed in a blur of simmering frustration. Alex couldn't shake the image of Karen walking away with their stolen package. Every time they passed the spot where it had happened, their stomach twisted into knots. The weight of the betrayal sat like a stone in Alex's chest. It wasn't just the theft, it was the audacity. The casual, carefree way Karen had taken what didn't belong to her, as if she were entitled to it. That feeling, that cold, suffocating realization, gnawed at Alex more than they cared to admit. But there was something else, too. The feeling of helplessness, the anger that surged with every thought of Karen's face, was beginning to shift into something else. A plan. Alex had always been the type to stay calm, rational. But this time, the simmering anger was unbearable. Enough was enough. It had started as a single, misplaced package. Then it had escalated. There were now weeks of frustration, missing deliveries, and unanswered questions. But today was different. Today, Alex had reached their breaking point. A package was due. A new camera that Alex had been saving up for months. It was an item they needed. For work, for capturing moments that mattered. They checked the tracking every hour, obsessively watching the little icon on their phone as it moved closer and closer to their address. Every time the phone buzzed, every time the tracking page updated, a fresh wave of adrenaline hit Alex. Finally, the notification came. Delivered. Alex wasted no time. They rushed to the front door, nearly tripping over the steps in their haste. Their heart pounded in their chest as they swung open the door, expecting to see that familiar cardboard box waiting for them. But the porch was empty. Again. The breath caught in Alex's throat. It couldn't be happening again. A second, deeper panic followed. This was the last straw. It wasn't just a simple package anymore. This was something important, something irreplaceable. Alex's thoughts raced as they scanned the empty porch, the front yard, the mailbox. Nothing. Then, in a split second, a terrifying thought flitted through their mind. What if Karen had already taken it? What if she was inside her house right now, holding Alex's camera, oblivious to the consequences? The realization hit Alex hard. Karen had crossed the line. This wasn't just stealing anymore. This was personal. In the blink of an eye, Alex made a decision. No more waiting, no more watching. It was time to act, but not in a way anyone would expect. A wild, audacious idea formed, and the more Alex thought about it, the more they realized it was the perfect plan. The glitter bomb. A harmless prank that would not only teach Karen a lesson, but would also serve as an undeniable message. It wasn't just about getting the camera back anymore. It was about taking control, about flipping the script. Alex wanted to show Karen what it felt like to be caught in the act, and they would do it in a way that was loud, shocking, and absolutely impossible to ignore. Alex could already see it in their mind's eye. The look on Karen's face when that package exploded into a cloud of glitter. It would be chaos. Pure, sparkling chaos. The thought made Alex smirk, the tension in their chest easing just a little. There was power in this plan, a quiet kind of vengeance that could never be undone. They quickly pulled up the website, searching for the perfect glitter bomb. It had to be the kind that would cause a mess everywhere, on Karen's furniture, in her hair, in the corners of her house. The bigger the mess, the more satisfying the outcome. Alex imagined Karen stumbling around, desperately trying to clean up, only to watch as the sparkles spread and multiply. It was brilliant, and it would work. Alex hit order now and leaned back, finally breathing a little easier. The wheels were in motion. The stage was set. Karen had no idea what was coming her way, but Alex knew one thing for sure. When the glitter bomb went off, Karen's days of stealing would be over. Alex barely slept that night. Every time they closed their eyes, they imagined Karen, her smug, satisfied smile as she swiped another package, the sneaky glint in her eyes. But as the hours dragged on, a new sense of calm began to settle over Alex. They had a plan, a brilliant, unexpected plan, and it was going to be perfect. The next morning, Alex woke up with a surge of anticipation, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The glitter bomb had been ordered, and the tracking number was already showing a delivery date within the next few days. But that wasn't the best part. No, the best part was how little Karen would see it coming. Alex had done their research after all. They knew exactly what they were after. A glitter bomb that would leave a trail of sparkles so chaotic that Karen wouldn't be able to get rid of them for weeks. They thought about it, planning every detail. The box. It had to look innocent enough, like a regular Amazon delivery. Nothing that would make Karen suspicious. Alex imagined her walking up to their doorstep, so sure she'd found another free prize to claim. She'd lift the box, and just as she stepped over the threshold of her house, the bomb would go off, filling her home with a glittering, iridescent explosion. Alex chuckled darkly to themselves. The thought of Karen scrambling to clean up would be sweet, but it wasn't the mess that mattered. It was the message that stealing from their neighbors was not only unacceptable, but could have consequences that would follow Karen long after the glitter settled. Days passed slowly as Alex awaited the delivery of their glitter bomb. The anticipation was maddening, but Alex was focused. Nothing could distract them now. Every small detail mattered. Alex set an alarm to make sure they were home the moment their package arrived. It had to be the perfect moment. Timing was everything. Then, just when Alex thought they couldn't wait any longer, the notification came. Package delivered. Alex's pulse spiked. They didn't waste a second. The moment they heard the delivery truck rumble down the street, they grabbed their phone, checked the security camera, and saw the familiar brown box sitting on the porch. Everything was lined up. The plan was coming to fruition. But Alex's thoughts weren't just on Karen anymore. The more they thought about it, the more they realized how clever this scheme really was. A harmless little prank, really, with no permanent damage, just a lesson in consequences. What could possibly go wrong? And then, of course, that little voice of doubt began to creep in. What if Karen wasn't the only one watching? Alex shoved the thought aside. There was no time for second-guessing. They'd already come too far. If Karen really wanted to play the thief, then Alex was going to make sure she'd never forget this lesson. The clock ticked on. Alex's hands trembled slightly as they opened the door and stepped outside, their breath caught in their throat as they crouched down to place the glitter bomb just so. It had to look like any other package, nestled carefully against the door. Nothing out of place, nothing suspicious. They stepped back, took a deep breath, and watched from the window as Karen's house came into view. Soon, the anticipation felt like a weight on Alex's chest. It was only a matter of time. Every sound, every movement, seemed amplified in the quiet stillness of the morning. The birds, the rustling of the leaves, even the wind that tousled the trees, it all seemed to build toward this one moment. Karen was about to get a surprise that would change everything. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the neighborhood. Alex stood at the window, a silent observer, their heart hammering in their chest. It was the perfect moment. The porch was silent, the package resting innocently where they had placed it, waiting. But in the quiet, there was an electric charge, a tension that could only mean one thing. Karen was about to walk right into the trap. Every nerve in Alex's body was on high alert. Their mind raced through the plan again, running through every detail. Was everything in place? With the glitter bomb trigger at the perfect moment? Could they see the look on Karen's face when the chaos erupted? Alex could barely contain the surge of excitement. This wasn't just about the package anymore. This was about justice. Just then, the familiar sound of footsteps broke through Alex's thoughts. It was Karen. There she was, strolling down the street, as casual as ever, her arms swinging gently at her sides. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Now, was this really happening? For a moment, it felt like the world around them slowed down. The sound of the wind rustling the trees, the birds chirping, everything seemed to hush as Karen drew nearer. Alex held their breath, every fiber of their being focused on the moment. They could almost hear Karen's footsteps, each one a step closer to the package, to the moment when everything would change. Karen approached the porch, her eyes scanning the area. She paused for a second, looking left, then right, as if checking to make sure no one was watching. But Alex was already crouched low behind the curtains, peeking just enough to see her every move. It was now or never. And then, without hesitation, Karen moved. Her hand reached down, fingers curling around the box. Alex's pulse quickened as Karen lifted it off the ground. The glitter bomb was about to go off, and Alex's breath caught in their throat. The plan was almost perfect. But just as Karen started to walk away, a new thought flickered through Alex's mind. What if this wasn't the last time? What if Karen just tossed the glitter into the trash and continued to steal from them? No, this had to be the moment when the tables turned, when Karen was forced to confront the consequences of her actions. She couldn't just walk away. But then, just as quickly as the thought came, it was drowned out by the sound of the pop. The glitter bomb went off in a burst of sparkles so bright and sudden that it almost felt like the entire porch was bathed in light. The shimmering particles shot into the air, suspended in a breathtaking cloud of gold, purple, and pink. They rained down around Karen in a surreal explosion of color, filling the air with a dazzling chaos. For a split second, everything froze. Karen stood there, utterly still, her eyes wide in shock as the glitter storm engulfed her. Her hand flew up to her face, brushing the glistening specks off her skin, but it was too late. The glitter was everywhere. It had already found its way into her hair, her clothes, and even her shoes. A loud, piercing shriek broke the silence, followed by a cascade of muttered curses. Karen stumbled backward, knocking into the porch railing as she frantically tried to wipe away the sparkles, only making them spread further. Alex's lips curled into a smile, watching the once immaculate porch become an absolute mess. But it wasn't just the mess that made Alex's heart race. It was the look on Karen's face, the pure, unfiltered shock. The realization that, for the first time, she wasn't in control. She wasn't the one taking. She was the one caught. Alex's chest tightened with an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. This was the moment, the one they had been waiting for. But as the glitter settled, and Karen scrambled to get a grip on what had just happened, Alex knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Karen had been caught, but the real consequences were just beginning. The world seemed to pause for a split second as the glitter bomb exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors, and for that brief, fleeting moment, Karen was frozen in stunned disbelief. Her eyes were wide, her mouth hanging open as if trying to comprehend what had just happened. But that didn't last long. The shriek that followed shattered the silence like a broken glass, high-pitched and frantic. Karen's hand shot up to her face, trying to wipe the shimmering mess from her cheeks, but it only made things worse. The glitter was everywhere, on her clothes, in her hair, spilling over her shoes, even twinkling in the air as she swung her arms wildly in an attempt to shake it off. Alex couldn't hold back the grin that spread across their face. They leaned forward, eyes glued to the scene unfolding in front of them. The satisfaction was palpable, almost electric. This wasn't just a prank. It was the culmination of weeks of frustration and helplessness. And now Karen was getting a taste of what it felt like to be caught in the act. But it wasn't just the spectacle that thrilled Alex. It was the look on Karen's face, the shock, the outrage, the panic as she stood there, covered head to toe in glitter, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Wah! What is this?" Karen's voice cracked as she stumbled backward, her arms flailing. She turned in circles like a tornado, trying to rid herself of the shimmering mess, but every movement only made it worse. The sparkles clung to her skin, embedded in her hair, and scattered into every nook and cranny of her clothes. Alex could feel their heart pounding in their chest. This was the perfect moment. The moment when Karen had no choice but to realize that what she had done, stealing, sneaking around, taking what didn't belong to her, had consequences. Big, glittery consequences. But just as Alex was savoring the moment, something shifted. Karen's voice grew louder, more frantic. "Who did this?" she screamed, her face contorting in disbelief. "Who did this to me?" There was a pause, and then she turned her frantic gaze toward Alex's house, as if searching for the invisible hand that had unleashed the chaos. Her eyes narrowed, a dark suspicion flashing across her face. She knew. Alex froze, a chill creeping up their spine. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks. Karen had no doubt who was behind it. And there was no way Alex could hide their involvement now. The truth was out in the open, glitter sparkling across the front yard like an undeniable banner. Karen stormed toward the porch, her fists clenched in fury, her steps loud and heavy. "You think this is funny?" she yelled, the words dripping with venom. "You think you can just prank me like this and get away with it?" Alex's heart skipped a beat. The anger in Karen's voice was unmistakable. She was livid, and the quiet, controlled satisfaction that had filled Alex moments ago began to fade. Was this a bad idea? Was it too far? They had expected Karen to be embarrassed, but the rage in her eyes was something they hadn't anticipated. "Come out here, you coward. Face me," Karen shouted, her voice like a whip in the air. For a split second, Alex hesitated, caught in the eye of the storm. They had planned this perfectly, hadn't they? This was supposed to be a fun, harmless way to teach Karen a lesson, not escalate into something bigger. But now the tables had turned. It was no longer just about the glitter. It was about confrontation. Alex's hand gripped the edge of the windowpane, sweat beading on their forehead. They couldn't just stand there and watch anymore. The thrill of the prank had quickly morphed into something far more dangerous. This wasn't a joke anymore. This was real. It was time to make a decision. Would they stay hidden, watching Karen rage, or would they step out into the open and face the woman whose thievery had ignited this chaos? Alex knew one thing. Whatever happened next, things were about to get very, very complicated. The air outside seemed to vibrate with tension as Karen stood at the foot of Alex's porch, her face a twisted mask of fury and disbelief. She was drenched in glitter, every inch of her shining like some bizarre, angry disco ball, but that didn't seem to matter. The rage, the kind of pure, unfiltered fury that Alex had only ever seen in movies, was spilling out of Karen like an uncontrollable flood. Alex's heart raced as they stood frozen by the window. What now? The perfect prank had backfired. What was supposed to be a clever lesson had turned into something far more personal. They could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on them, the pressure of the next step suffocating. Karen was still shouting. Her voice grew louder, each word more venomous than the last. You think this is funny? You think you can mess with me and get away with it? I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. The threat hung in the air, thick and foreboding. Karen was enraged, yes, but now Alex could sense the danger, the kind that came from someone who had been caught red-handed and wasn't going down without a fight. Alex had expected a shocked reaction, maybe some embarrassment. What they hadn't expected was a fight. For a split second, Alex thought about staying inside, hiding, and letting the storm blow over. After all, Karen was just one person. How much could she really do? But as the seconds ticked by, the instinct to face the consequences head-on grew stronger. Confrontation was inevitable. Slowly, Alex pushed the curtain aside and stepped out onto the porch, feeling the cool evening air wrap around them like a shroud. Karen's eyes locked onto them instantly, narrowing with a mix of rage and disbelief. There you are, she spat. So you think this is funny? What, you're just going to prank me and let it go? Alex took a steadying breath. They knew this moment was pivotal. They couldn't back down now, but they couldn't let things escalate further either. The glitter had already done its damage. The last thing Alex wanted was a full-blown war with their neighbor. With an even, calm tone, Alex spoke. It wasn't meant to be anything more than a harmless lesson. Karen, you've been taking my packages for weeks now. I just wanted you to understand what it feels like. Karen's laugh was high-pitched and shrill, a sound that made Alex's stomach churn. A lesson? Oh, you think this is a lesson? She stepped closer, fists clenched by her sides. You have no idea what you've just started. I'll make sure everyone knows you're a coward who hides behind pranks instead of facing things like an adult. Alex's throat tightened, the weight of the words settling heavily. What was Karen going to do next? She wasn't backing down. There was no apology in sight, no remorse. Just pure, simmering rage. It was a dangerous cocktail. In that moment, Alex realized the real danger wasn't just in what Karen might say to others. It was in how far she might go to make Alex pay for what had happened. The glitter bomb might have been small, but the consequences of this confrontation could be much larger. Just as Alex opened their mouth to respond, Karen cut them off. You better watch your back, she hissed. You don't know what kind of person you're messing with. And with that, she turned on her heel and stormed off, the sound of her furious footsteps echoing through the street. Alex stood there, stunned. The sudden shift in the air was palpable, the feeling of something dark and dangerous just waiting to explode. They hadn't expected Karen to lash out this way. But it was clear now. The situation wasn't over. It wasn't even close to over. As Karen disappeared into her house, Alex could feel the danger lingering. They had thought this was just a prank, just a way to make a point. But now it was much bigger than that. It was a battle for control, a battle between right and wrong. And Karen had just shown her hand. This wasn't just about stolen packages anymore. This was about pride, and Karen wasn't going to let it slide. The silence that followed Karen's departure felt deafening. Alex stayed rooted to the porch, staring at the empty space where Karen had just been. The glitter might have been cleaned off, but the storm was far from over. The night was thick with silence. Alex stood at the edge of the porch, the weight of the confrontation settling over them like a storm cloud. The shimmer of glitter in the air still lingered, catching the last rays of twilight and reflecting them back in a kaleidoscope of colors. But for Alex, the sparkle now felt more like a warning, a sign that the quiet was only temporary. Karen had stormed off, but Alex knew this wasn't the end. It couldn't be. There was too much at stake now, and Karen wasn't the type to let something like this slide. The fury in her eyes hadn't been the end of it. It had been the beginning of something far darker. Alex paced back and forth on the porch, their mind running 1,000 miles a minute. What was Karen planning? What could she do? Alex had expected some backlash, sure, but the intensity of Karen's anger was unsettling. They thought they were teaching her a lesson, but in reality they may have just thrown gasoline on a fire. A chill ran down Alex's spine as the thought hit them. What if Karen was lying in wait? What if she had already devised some kind of twisted revenge? They couldn't afford to underestimate her. The seconds stretched into minutes, and the minutes felt like hours. Every sound outside, every rustle of the trees, every distant car engine, sounded like it was closing in on them. The weight of the situation felt unbearable. The tranquility of the neighborhood, once a comfort, now felt suffocating. Alex could feel the pulse of something building, something impending and uncertain. They checked the door locks, just in case. Then the windows. Every shadow seemed to whisper, every creak of the floorboards sounded like a threat. A sound suddenly pierced the quiet, a knock at the door. Alex's heart leaped into their throat. It was too soon. They approached cautiously, heart racing. Slowly they peeked through the peephole. There, standing on the porch, was Karen. But something was different now. Her posture was different. Her shoulders were stiff, her face unreadable. Alex's breath hitched. Was this the moment when Karen was going to retaliate? Were the police involved, or was Karen here to confront them again, more menacing than before? But the reality was more bizarre than Alex could have imagined. Karen, standing tall and serious on the doorstep, suddenly smiled, a tight, thin-lipped grin that made Alex's stomach churn. "We need to talk," she said, her voice dripping with an unsettling calmness. Alex hesitated, unsure whether they should open the door or retreat to safety. But they had come this far. It was time to face whatever came next. With a deep breath, Alex opened the door, keeping a safe distance. "What do you want, Karen?" She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her eyes scanning the interior as if making a mental note of everything she saw. But Alex wasn't about to let her take control. "You've got some nerve," Alex said, their voice steely. "After what you did, what we both know you've been doing." Karen's grin didn't falter. "Oh, I'm not here for revenge, Alex," she said, her words slow and deliberate. "I'm here because you messed with the wrong person, and I don't take kindly to being humiliated." Alex narrowed their eyes, the anger from earlier rising again. What was this about? "But I also know a good opportunity when I see one," Karen continued, her voice taking on a more calculating tone. "You see, I'm not just going to let this slide. Not after all the trouble you've caused me, but I'm willing to make a deal." She leaned in closer, her eyes locking onto Alex's with a chilling intensity. Alex's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the turning point. The part of the story where it all became clear. What did Karen want? What kind of deal was she offering? "I'll leave you alone," Karen said, her voice now low and dangerous, "if you promise me one thing." Alex held their breath, the tension thick in the air. The deal sounded too good to be true. "And what's that?" "You'll never pull a stunt like that again," Karen said with a deadly calm. "You'll forget about the pranks, the glitter, and just let me have what I want." For a moment, Alex stood still, processing the offer, their pulse racing. Was this the moment to end the madness? To make peace, or would agreeing to Karen's terms just make them her next target? The seconds stretched out as Alex weighed their options, knowing that whatever they decided next could either end the story or ignite it into something even worse.